with Will Smith's company. Can you share that story? Because I think that's such it ties everything that you just talked about in standing who you are, and observing the Sabbath and why that's important.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I got the first interview with Will Smith's company at the age of 18. When I first got to Los Angeles to go to school at USC, I knew that I needed to also get an internship because education wasn't just going to happen in the classroom. I also needed to get a professional education on how the entertainment industry worked. And so an internship was something that I put a lot of focus and attention to in order to combine that with my academic study.
Mm-hmm.
So a friend of a friend got me an interview at the management company that managed Will Smith. And so I go in the interview, and it was funny because when I first got in there, I had sent in my resume and had my picture on it. And when I get in there, the person that was doing the hiring showed me my resume with my picture crossed off.
Oh.
She was like, this job is not about that, and you don't want to send your picture around in your resume because some people may look at that and not hire you. So, I just want to make sure you keep it professional. And so I thought that the interview was going to be horrible. I was like, oh my goodness, I've already messed up,
The worst feeling in the
But,
world.
however, once we got through that, we ended up a fantastic time. And at the end of the interview, she asked me, is there anything else that you want to add? And so I was silent, In growing up as a Christian, I was observed the Sabbath. So Friday night sundown to Saturday sundown, I didn't work or, play basketball or, do anything social.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the interview, it was like God was telling me Sabbath. And I'm like, no, I'll tell her after I get the job, we want to get the opportunity and then we'll tell the person, how we can manage it, but after we get it. And so, God just said, tell her about the Sabbath. So, reluctantly, I just said, well, I observe the Saturday night sundown to Saturday night sundown. So if taking the internship requires me to work during this period of time, unfortunately, I won't be able to take it. And it was very quiet, and I'm having this internal dialogue with God, like, God, you're not right. Why would you do this to me, And after, a moment of silence, she said, don't worry about it. We can work around it. And what that did is it gave me confidence. And, if it's a door God is opening in my life, then I can be true to what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I can have faith. And that door that he opens require me to compromise what I believe, but the door will be big enough to fit what I believe.
Devon, can I just read the quote exactly the way you said it on
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was like, hallelujah when you said this. If your
Yeah.
faith won't fit in the door that
That's right.
opens, then I argue do not walk through that door. The door
That's right.
that God opens for you will fit your faith. I said, what? I had to write it down. But
Oh,
it's really
man.
true, and it takes a lot of bravery to stand up for what you believe in, and I applaud you for doing that. And I think
Thank you.
by telling that story, I think you're going to inspire a lot of people to really just stand behind their beliefs, especially those that observe the Sabbath. But observing the Sabbath, why do you observe the Sabbath? Why is that important?
It's important because, in a theological sense, the Ten Commandments, the fourth commandment is, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy, right? 6 days shall you labor, but the seventh day is the Sabbath, right? So in the Ten Commandments, right up there with, thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not covet, God tells us to remember the Sabbath and to keep it holy. They do it as a Christian in Christ. Jesus observed the Sabbath. It's all through the New Testament, right? So just as a follower of Christ, I believe that everything that he did on this earth is an example for us to follow. And so I follow and observe the Sabbath because he also did it. And the other thing that I find is that when you take a day off, a charge, to reconnect with God, reconnect with your family, to relax, to rest, you're better when you come back. I've observed the Sabbath, and we're going back to school days. I wouldn't study on the Sabbath. I wouldn't do homework on the Sabbath. I don't read scripts on the Sabbath now, but I'm as productive. I still got the grades, when I was in school. My last semester at USC, I got all A's. My first semester at USC, I was on the dean's list. I'm still getting movies made here at Sony. So, you think sometimes, well, if I take time off, will I lose? But when you take that time off, it's almost like tithing. When you give, that back to God, he's going to bless the other 90%. He'll bless the other 6 days, and I have seen it. I mean, I'm telling you, you know, I think a lot of the blessings that are in my life come because I've made a commitment to observe the Sabbath. And it is a time, man, to just, I'm telling you, like, when I shut down and, you know, when Megan's home and we shut down and we get in the Word or we'll watch a, you know, a religious program or watch an educational documentary. I mean, it is like a time where you don't have to worry about all the other stresses of the week. So these are some of the reasons why I observe it.
Was that something Megan always did too, or is that something you
No,
introduced to her?
and she didn't know anything about it. She didn't know anything about it until we got together. So, you know, it was an education, and it's still an education. You know, and she totally is convicted on it and totally believes in the Sabbath. You know, and like any believer, as she's coming into it, you know, she's continuing to own, you know, her own observance of it. You know, when we're not together. But it's something that, you know, both of us are very, very committed to, and it's important to our spiritual walk.
Because you're a preacher, and you know we have a lot of people that are developing relationships, and I know that as a minister of God,
Yeah.
that you advise couples. You know, how did you know that Megan was the one, and how would you advise others to find the one,
I mean,
or
yeah.
identify that whoever's with them might be the one?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's very difficult for me to articulate it and to talk about it or to give anyone advice about it without understanding it from a spiritual standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or talking about it from a spiritual standpoint. You know, when it came to Megan, you know, part of what helped me realize that she was the one was, you know, obviously one, how I felt. You know, two was like on the third date, you know, we just had an experience that, you know, really it was spiritual. Just, you know, just hugging each other. It was just like, wow, there's something going on here, you know. And also part of it was to be patient, you know, and you feel something. And a lot of times, you know, when we feel something, we want to just, you know, press the gas, you know what I mean? But you got to, you know, pace yourself. And then you got to look at the person's heart, you know, and you got to look at what they stand for and what they want out of life. You know, so much of what I wanted out of life, she wanted out of life. And so much of our conversations and our time together, there was an ease, there was a peace, and there was a calm, you know. And so what I loved about it is that, you know, with Megan specifically, it was like, you know, everybody looks at the actress and the movie star and all this, but I was able to see her heart, you know. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, that's the profession, but that's not the person. And so for us to really get beyond our titles and get beyond how the world sees us and give each other a chance to really see how God sees us and who we are. In that, we found that it was the best experience either of us had ever had, you know, and so much of that was that we were the one in each other's lives. And, you know, life has just continued to get better since we got together. When I advise other couples, I say, you know, one, you got to really get your relationship with God right. You know, because so much of the discernment that you're going to need about the mate in your life, He will give you. And when you're close to God, you can then begin to understand if this person that's coming in your life is the right person. Part of Megan and I making that determination also was she was committed to God and I was committed to God before we got together. You know, so we had a really strong spiritual foundation, which was another key, another piece of evidence that let us know that we were the right ones for each other. Another thing that another thing we talk about was, you know, we didn't consummate the relationship till marriage. You know, that was very, very important because we did not want to get into a situation where, you know, sometimes when you put something in the microwave, it cooks it faster than when it's in the oven. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know, a relationship, you know, you cross that line too early, too soon, and things, you know, that you think you know somebody, but you don't. And then a lot of times you end up spending years recovering from a situation that ended in a devastating way. When maybe if you didn't cross that line, you would have seen that this isn't the right person, and it would have been easier to get out of it. So these were some of the things that we did. You know, we waited until marriage, which we were excited about and happy about, and we've been blessed because of it. So I try to, you know, confer and try to, you know, give some of this advice to those that come to me, you know, in relationships. And, you know, because it's a hard thing. I mean, finding the mate, finding the right fit for your life is truly one of probably the most challenging endeavors. But when you find the person, you know it. You know it. You know it. You feel it in your heart. You can see it. Others can see it. And the key piece is, does that person make you better? You know, I mean, I can tell you that from the day we started dating, you know, Meagan, it just, I mean, I ain't, man, I am right now. If it wasn't for her coming in my life.